feel like getting up and dancing when I hear the dueling violins. We wanted to mention Dr. Christine Pickup from Mount Harrison Audiology is with us. She's here until 9:30 this morning. We're at 48. Bill Colley as well on News Radio 1310, KLIX, and newsradio1310.com. Thanks for joining us on Magic Valley this morning. Uh, we're just talking off air, and you're having a conversation with Steve Millington, and pretty in-depth conversation, but it does dovetail well into what your opening topic is today, because the two of you
Yes.
were talking about how he became aware of his hearing loss some years ago, and what he went through at the time. And so it gets us back to this month is the month you really remind people of what you
Yes.
do.
October is Audiology Awareness Month, among a lot of other things. But this is a month where audiologists as a profession are trying to educate the public about what we are and who we are and what we can do to help you live a better life.
And the whole month of October is an opportunity for you then, I'm looking for a big word here, to proselytize about hearing health.
Yes, I love that. Yes, we are out preaching the word about how hearing loss is such a vital thing that we need to diagnose, treat, and help people with. My vision really is that we're in the communication and relationship business. Our purpose is to help people stay connected with their family, with their loved ones, with their vocation, with all those important parts of our life are touched by how we hear.
Well, I know you don't want to reference any specific competitor, but I referenced one before the show for you, and
Yes.
you don't give away free turkeys or hams, but uh,
No.
on the other hand, we stress this whenever you're here. You're not just here as a salesman hyping a particular hearing aid or hearing device.
No, we are not a retail store. We are a medically based audiology clinic. So our purpose is to diagnose and treat hearing loss. It's not just to sell you a device. That we don't sell hearing aids, we treat hearing loss.
And you don't do 2-for-1 sales, and
No.
this is not like you go in with your grocery card and say, okay, what discount can I get with that this week?
No, we have a different approach. We keep our prices, for technology and for treatment very reasonable, and that therefore we don't raise them and lower them to make it look like we're having a sale. And we don't, inflate things and say, "Oh, yes, now it's buy one get one half off," because that's not how you do healthcare. You don't go to your knee surgeon and say, I want the cheap knee replacement, or I want the cheap uh, pacemaker. And so we approach hearing loss differently. Hearing aid is not a commodity; it's a tool that we use to treat your hearing loss. And so it's a different approach. Our clinic when I opened my clinic 5 years ago, that was the approach I wanted to emphasize: is that hearing loss is a medical condition. It is a chronic, for most people, not we can't fix it with surgery, we can't fix it with drugs. We treat it with hearing loss, or with hearing aids and counseling. There's a whole process that we follow in our clinic that's different than at a retail establishment.
And we were having a conversation with Steve before he left, and of course he had posed a question to me. He said, "Now, what would the doctor charge for a hearing aid?" But there's not one standard price, because hearing aids differ from patient to patient.
Yes. Well, we do have standard pricing, but what
But
it
when I go buy glasses, for instance, depending on
right.
my prescription,
Yes, there are
and
differences,
right,
exactly. And same with diagnostic testing. We don't do a free hearing test. People ask us, well, why don't you just do free tests? Because we actually are Medicare participants. So we take Medicare. Therefore, as a Medicare provider, we can't give something free that we charge Medicare for. We do a real diagnostic evaluation. We don't just do a quick test to sell you something. We care deeply about the people who come to our clinic. We want to get to know who you are, what your goals are, what your concerns are, and that's part of how we create a treatment plan for that individual patient.
we had a man who used to sell glasses in my hometown when I was a kid, and he was, I guess, an optometrist, and he would just basically, well, you need thicker glasses. You'd come in the next time, well, you need thicker glasses, and and he never ever once said to my parents that someone could correct my lazy eye, which I'm still dealing with to this day. And we only learned when I was 12, I think, from an actual ophthalmologist, I think it was,
Mhm.
who said, "Gee, if you'd had something done with that eye when he was 4, 5, 6 years old, he might have come out of this with 20/20 vision." And it's similar in the sense that that's the thing. This guy was selling glasses. He wasn't necessarily trying to diagnose what the issue was or come up with a solution for the issue other than just sell you a new pair of glasses. And that's what you have to counteract that, because people have to understand. Someone can give you that old ram's horn and say, "Listen through this," but it's not gonna. You could have whatever's causing your hearing loss could be something very serious. You've got to treat.
Precisely. Yeah. A lot of hearing loss is fairly, run of the mill noise induced or whatever, but there are always those exceptions. There are people who have a sudden hearing loss. I'm trying to help primary care doctors understand that if someone has a sudden hearing loss, that is a medical emergency. There is a treatment that we can follow, but it has to happen with a very short window, or that hearing loss may be permanent. So we come at a different approach. We want to make sure that there's not something treatable, and if there is, then we have trusted partners we work with. We have a wonderful new neuro-otologist in Boise named Dr. Crawford. We have some good ENTs here in Twin Falls. If someone needs surgery or needs, additional medical care, we will make the appropriate referrals, but you have to have a hearing test first. And so a lot of times we're the best place to come first, because then you have the data and we actually know what's going on, so we can make the appropriate referrals.
I have, and to look for an analogy in automobiles, I have a place a couple of blocks from where I live. If I want to go in and get an oil change, I just show up when the doors open up in the morning. I'll go over early on a Saturday morning. They'll bring the car in. I'll tell them what oil I want. They give me a standard price. They put the oil in. They make sure the tire pressure's fine, and they roll me out. But they're not there to say, "Hey, you've got another problem.
Right.
You've got a problem over here, and this might be why you're burning oil, or this could be why you're leaking oil."
Right.
That's not what they do.
No. And there are times when a hearing aid is not appropriate. That's important to know. We need to be able to get the right diagnostic testing done so that we can choose the correct course of treatment. And so that's our approach. And the other thing is that we can take a look at all ages. So we are the only private clinic that does auditory brainstem response testing. We can take care of the youngest and most vulnerable in our communities. We are really proud to work with the veterans programs and take care of our veterans. We have a unique proposition that I know that people recognize and respond to because it's genuine. We really do care about our community.
I just was, bringing up. I've been bringing up some of these issues today because I got an email overnight from a friend of mine who, part of this might be related to his former job. He used to fly around in F-16s at 500 miles per hour.
Oh, wow.
But he has been diagnosed with something, and this is an eye problem, but I think it could be similar to what some people may have when it comes to hearing issues. And this is it's called GCA,
Mm-hmm.
and he started noticing vision problems and headaches and double vision, and then
Mm-hmm.
it would kind of come and go. And then driving to his doctor yesterday, he actually lost vision in one eye, and apparently it deals with the expansion of blood vessels.
Okay.
His eyesight otherwise is probably close to 20/20. It always
Mm-hmm.
has been, but this is why you don't always know what it is. And this condition even sent me along. This is called giant cell uh, arteritis,
Okay.
and he sent me all the details on it. But these are the things that you wouldn't know. They could, hearing health's the same way. If you've got hearing loss, yeah, we can amplify sound for you,
Right.
but
But is it appropriate?
right,
There's actual tests that we can do to find out if there's regions in your inner ear that are literally dead, like have no response. If we amplify those regions, it will just cause more problems. So there's actual tests we can do to figure out what's going to work best for each individual patient, where the problem areas are, and then find the appropriate solution.
and that often is a solution that is pretty welcome, because if you can, sometimes there are things that are going to continue to be degenerative,
Hmm.
but sometimes if you can stop things and maybe even reverse them, and you can do that. I mean, that's what people should also understand. When you say they don't always need a hearing aid, it can be something that you can turn around.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and if they do need a hearing aid or they do need some other form of treatment, the good news is we have great outcomes. It's really rare that one of the best things that we see when you treat it early and we catch it early is that your ability to use sound appropriately stays really strong. So, for example, if someone, no like maybe they've waited 7 to 10 years to do something about their hearing loss, you'll notice that their ability to discriminate those differences in speech degrades over time. Whereas if we catch it early and we keep those cells active, we keep the brain stimulated properly, that rarely happens. So it really is a use it or lose it proposition when it comes to how our brain works with our hearing. There's also been studies that show if we don't treat the hearing loss, that your brain, there's tissue that actually shrinks in the brain because it's not getting the stimulus it needs. We know that there's a link between hearing loss and dementia. It's not causal, but we know there's a relationship. It makes sense that if your brain's having to work harder than it needs to, that's a detriment. So we know that treating hearing loss, it's not going to prevent dementia, but it is going to help you not have to work so hard. There's a correlation between hearing loss and feeling tired or being depressed. There's so many things that we can tackle and help people with.
I will say this. I had a moment where I felt pretty good about my hearing last week. I was at my desk one morning. It was 3:30 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
and I was typing away, and I heard a train whistle. Now, the train whistle will go off. We're not all that far away from the tracks, but still, it's quite a few blocks away
Mm-hmm.
on the other side of this canyon here, this smaller canyon here. And but to be able to pick up a sound like that in a room in a big building from a distance, I thought, okay, I'm not quite to the point yet where I'm worried about, walking around saying, huh, huh, what was that?
No, but I'll counter that with it's really smart to get a baseline test before you're 50, preferably before you're 40, because even small changes can make a big difference. They've found that even a mild loss gives you like a 200% greater risk of cognitive decline. There's a lot of gray between normal hearing and profound hearing loss. There's a lot of things in between. So it's smart to get
Can
that
be
diagnostic.
gradual, but can also be gradual and then occasionally with some big starts. I mean, fits and
Yes.
starts. It just suddenly you get a
Yes.
big jump in all of this.
Depending on the cause, which is again why you need a good diagnostic test to figure out what's going on.
Oftentimes, people who've had strokes, I mean, they have hearing loss related to that too.
Yes, it depends on where the stroke hits in the brain. It can cause blindness, it can cause trouble speaking, depending on where the stroke hits in the brain. But yes, if it hits in the auditory regions, it can cause hearing loss.
Got about a minute before the first break. For people who'd like to find the office, how do they go about doing that?
We are located in Rupert, right behind Minidoka Memorial Hospital. We're in the little offices just north across from the ER. We're in unit number 2.
And we wanted to point out too as well. You've the telephone number you'd like people to reach you at. You've changed that a bit.
Well, we have a number for the radio so that we know who's coming in from the radio. But the best, another place you can go is our website, mountharrisonaudiology.com. It's a great resource. We have lots of information about hearing loss and about hearing aids and about diabetes and hearing loss. Lots of different questions you might have. You can go there, and there's even a new free report on the top 10 things you need to know before you choose your audiologist.
What about people who have a loud spouse? I
Well,
guess they'd have to be really loud.
sometimes that is a symptom that they can't hear themselves because they have hearing loss.
Right, right. I have a couple of friends who they're loud, but I think it's cultural. There's the families they grew up in New York City.
That's part of it too.
Yes, we've got a short break. It's 51. Dr. Christine Pickup joining us from Mount Harrison Audiology. Bill Colley, too, on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. Dr. Christine Pickup is in studio with us. She is here until 9:30. If you've got a question or comment, too, for the doctor, 208-736-0300, 208-736-0300. Bill Colley with you as well on Magic Valley this morning, and do want to point out you're listening. Did I say News Radio 1310 KLIX already? I'll repeat it. It's always, they tell us repetition is good anyway in this business. We were just talking off air, and you were mentioning a bill that is working its way around Capitol Hill.
Yes.
That could have some impact on the business you do and also some of your patients.
Absolutely. So the Medicare law as it stands right now was written 30 years ago. And at that point, audiologists were considered techs. They had a master's level education, but since then, things have changed. We now have our doctoring profession. We have an additional couple years of education and experience required, and we are more aligned like with a nurse practitioner or a doctor of pharmacy. or a doctor of physical therapy. And so there's to be able to change how we are seen in the Medicare law and be able to bill directly for our services, it has to actually have a law in Congress passed. And this year, we actually have a law introduced both in the House and the Senate. It's the Audiology Patient Choice Act, and it allows Medicare patients to be able to directly go to an audiologist and receive care without having to have a doctor's referral. So right now, how things are set up is if you have Medicare, you have to have a doctor's order or doctor's referral before I can see that patient and bill their Medicare. This will allow them to have direct access. It will actually save money because you don't have to go see your doctor first. A lot of doctors won't just send a referral. They'll want to, if you haven't been in within a year, they're going to want you to come in and have a checkup before they'll give you that referral. So it's going to save time, save money, and give people more access to hearing health care.
We've got a caller. Caller, you're up next. You're on the air with Dr. Christine Pickup at 923.
Doctor, a lot of times people that are driving will put the window down on the left side there. Mm-hmm. Are there more problems with the left ear?
Yes, sir. I see it a lot in truck drivers. I had a mentor that was he actually flew planes for the Air Force, and he always kept that left ear uncovered so he could hear what was happening because he flew tanker planes that were refueling in air. Yes. That ear gets more exposed, and yes, it tends to have more hearing loss. Good question.
Yeah, and I think I had a friend. He was he worked in the policing for over 20 years, and I remember talking with him one time, and he said even on cold winter days, he said I like to hear the neighborhood. So he said I have the window open. Mm-hmm. So he would drive around in the cruiser even with the window down. It could be 10 degrees outside, but with the wind blowing and everything else, and the noise exposure from the streets. Obviously, window gives you some sort of protection from that.
It does, and it's all about how loud it is and how long you're being exposed. So a brief duration, if it's not very loud, it's not going to be a big deal. But if it's a long-term thing where it's a consistent level for that long, yes, it can cause damage, and it'll be more pronounced on that left side.
And anybody flying a plane, by the way, you're going to have a lot of extra noise, especially if you're doing a tanker. You're flying a tanker because big rumbling. And I had a friend who did that for about 20 years in the Air Force as well. And they have a nickname for them. I think they call them Fred. But they when you're loading and unloading, all of those noises. And, mm-hmm. It's not always easy when you're putting a big load down on a metal floor or a metal.
Yeah, that metal on metal is always dangerous. But, so noise is always that's probably one of the biggest things that causes hearing loss in our society now.
And I think about people when they go to a gun range, they're putting on, please wear your.
When you're shooting guns, you really should be double protected. So plugs and then muffs over the top.
And when people going to the races, probably the same recommendation.
Mm-hmm. Yep, at least muffs or plugs. When it's a little bit better when you're at the races because you're further away from the track. Shooting is extra dangerous because there's no safe level for a gunshot, and it's in very close proximity, depending on what type of firearm you're shooting.
Yeah, 2 to 3 feet away generally from most people.
Exactly. So that there's no safe level for a gunshot. You should always, and hearing protection. Ideally, like an earplug, you're going to get maybe 20 dB of protection. Realistically, that's still leaving you at 120 dB exposure. So plugs and muffs are the safest way if you're doing any kind of gun range type thing. Just be extra careful.
Got another caller. Caller, you're up next. You're on KLIX with the doctor. Go ahead.
Good morning. I have a question about tinnitus.
They're both valid.
I hear shrills in my ears, and I'm pretty sure it was from hunting when I was a kid with a .22, and we didn't even know about ear protection back then. Is there anything that you could do for this siren that's in my head always?
Yes, sir. We actually have really great options for treatment now. We need to make sure that there's no underlying hearing loss because that is a factor. So tinnitus or tinnitus is not usually, it's a symptom of something underlying. So we've got to figure out what's causing it. And then there are treatments that are available that can either lessen or in some cases actually completely eliminate those symptoms. So I'd recommend you come in and let's figure out what's going on.
Yeah, okay then, because sometimes it's so loud it actually wakes me up.
Yep. No, we need to get you some help. So we'd be thrilled to have you come over.
Well, thank you for the answer.
You're welcome.
Thank you
for taking my call.
And you know, he brings up hunting season. A lot of people are doing that right now. Look, if you were in bear country and you're hunting, do you really want ear protection on because you're trying to also hear your surroundings?
You need to do there are actual hunting ear protections that are worth it. If you can afford to go hunting, you can afford to go get a pair of hunter's muffs. So they actually are electronic. They're based on hearing aid technology. They listen as soon as that gun goes off. They shut down, but then they open back up, so you can hear what's around you. You can actually give yourself super hearing and hear better than average because of the way that they're made. But the minute that gun goes off, they protect.
We got about a minute to go, so caller, you got to make it quick, but go ahead. You're on the air with Dr. Pickup.
Oh.
Nope, I think we lost the caller. Got about 60 seconds. Once more, for people who'd like to find you, how do they go about doing this?
We are in Rupert. Our hearing center of excellence is right behind the hospital in Rupert. MountHarrisonAudiology.com is the best place to go learn about our practice, learn about myself and my colleagues. We have an amazing staff who will take great care of you, and I'm really proud of each of them and their commitment to helping people hear better.
And you know, a lot of people, as you put it out, being the only privately owned healthcare clinic, hearing healthcare clinic in this valley, they're traveling long distances to visit with you, and so. But the fact of the matter is, you'll make them feel welcome.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, the minute you walk in, you're gonna get a feel for who I am because I decorated our office to look like my home. I spend more time there sometimes than I do with my family, and so yeah, everything that we've done is to make you feel at home and let you know how much
my studio looks like my home. Did you?
Well, I'm not going to comment.
You need a broom and a big wastebasket.
Yeah, no, we are just thrilled to be able to serve our community.
Well, we want to thank Dr. Christine Pickup. We'll see you in about 4 weeks.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
And have a safe drive back.
I will.
All right, super. Coming up at 9:30, we're at 52 on News Radio 1310, KLIX, newsradio1310.com. Bill Colley with you for one more half hour on Magic Valley this morning, and a couple of thoughts, too. President offering some thoughts on, he said he's the wrong person being impeached. He has some ideas on who could be.